I'm finished bankrolling your absurd lifestyle. Ryan's words sliced through the air in our kitchen, a cloud of poison from a fire I never saw coming. I was standing at the quartz countertop, the one I'd chosen, paid for, and wiped down 1,000 times over 7 years, carefully arranging artisan cheeses on a marble slab. My hands remained steady. They just kept working, placing each wedge in a perfect, pleasing pattern, the same way I'd been arranging my entire existence around his fragile ego, not even realizing I'd forgotten what my own tastes even were. Before we get into the details, I want to say thank you for being here, sharing in these stories of women finding their strength. If you believe that unseen work deserves to be seen, please consider subscribing. It costs nothing and helps us empower more women who need to hear they aren't alone. Now, let's watch this disaster unfold. He was leaning against the doorway, already in his designer athletic wear, the kind that runs $250 an outfit, all of it charged to my card. And he was watching me, waiting for me to break. He wore that expression I'd come to recognize lately, a look of rehearsed confrontation, as if he'd been practicing this very moment in the mirror at his exclusive gym, hyping himself up, convincing himself he was the hero, that he was finally taking a stand. Against what exactly, I was never sure. "Separate accounts," he declared, his voice gaining momentum from my silence. "Starting now. What's mine is mine, and what's yours is yours. We split everything down the middle, 50-50. It's only fair." Fair. The word felt like acid in my mouth. I placed the cheese knife down with meticulous care and turned to face him, my expression unreadable. "If that's what you want." He blinked. This wasn't in his script. He was expecting a scene. Tears, probably. Maybe some begging, a desperate plea about partnership and what marriage was supposed to mean. He wanted a fight, so he could feel justified in whatever story he'd spun for himself about being taken advantage of. Really? He stood up straighter, caught off guard. "Just like that?" "Just like that," I said, my voice perfectly even, eerily calm. "We'll set up the new accounts this week. We can transfer everything over. A fresh start." Relief washed over his face so completely, it would have been comical if it weren't so deeply insulting. "Good. That's good. I'll open mine tomorrow." He paused at the edge of the kitchen, gathering himself for one last dig, one final twist of the knife he'd just plunged into me. "Maybe this will finally teach you some financial discipline." And with that, he left to go get drinks with his gym buddies. Drinks that, for at least one more night, I would be paying for. I was left alone in my kitchen, which suddenly smelled of rosemary and something burning, even though nothing was on the stove. That scent was just us, I realized. Our marriage had been smoldering for so long, I'd gotten used to the smoke, my absurd lifestyle. I let my eyes drift around the space I had built, the herb garden on the windowsill that I tended to every single morning, the Wusthof knife block I'd spent weeks researching, the Le Creuset pot I had saved up for because Ryan claimed we couldn't afford it, while somehow finding the money for another $900 kettlebell certification that landed him exactly 0 new clients. This kitchen, this house, this whole life. I had designed it, financed it, and maintained it while Ryan posted filtered photos on Instagram with captions about the hustle and empire building for his 312 followers, most of whom were probably bots. I retrieved my laptop and sat down at the kitchen table. For a long moment, I just stared at the blank screen, my own reflection looking back at me like a ghost. When did I start to look so exhausted? When had the shadows under my eyes become so permanent? Then I opened our bank accounts. All of them. The joint checking we'd shared for 7 years. The high-yield savings account that I alone contributed to. The credit cards, 4 of them, all under my name because Ryan's credit was, in his words, complicated. I started pulling up statements, 7 years of them. I downloaded PDFs, organized them into folders by year, a digital archaeology of my own slow erasure. Mortgage payments, all from my salary. Property taxes, my account. Homeowner's insurance, my account. Utilities, my account. Groceries, my account. The trip to Bali that Ryan had posted about endlessly as if he'd manifested it through sheer will. Blessed travelpreneur. $14,500 on my Amex. His so-called business expenses told their own damning story. New athletic apparel every month, easily $300 to $400. Supplements and artisanal protein powders, another $400. Professional camera gear for his content, $2,200. A website overhaul he'd used for a month before abandoning it, $3,000. And the membership to Apex Athletics, the most exclusive gym in the city, instead of the perfectly good community center 5 minutes away, $250 a month for 5 years straight. I opened a new spreadsheet and began to enter the data. The work was methodical, almost soothing. A column for the date, a column for the expense, a column for the amount, and a final crucial column. Funder. Year 1 materialized on the screen in a stark, color-coded reality. My contribution to our household, $59,000. Ryan's, $9,000. Year 2, $68,000 from me. $8,100 from him. Years 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The story never changed. My contributions rose with every raise and promotion I earned at Nexus Innovations. His flatlined at around $750 a month, barely enough to cover his car payment, and certainly not enough to justify the endless stream of gear and gadgets and certifications that appeared on my credit card statements like clockwork. The grand total made my hands freeze over the keyboard. Me, $410,000. Ryan, $52,000, 88%. I had paid for 88% of our shared life for 7 years. While he told me I needed financial discipline, while he built a personal brand that had generated a grand total of $4,100 in 2 years, while he posted motivational quotes about hustle and grinding and never giving up, I had been his dream. I was his hustle. His meal ticket, his unpaid assistant, his chef, his maid, and his primary investor, all wrapped up in one increasingly tired package. And he had just accused me of mooching off him. I saved the file as ledgeroflies.exlsx and backed it up in 3 separate places: cloud storage, an external hard drive, and a tiny USB stick that I slipped into a hidden pocket of my work tote. Then I leaned back, looking at the numbers glowing on the screen like an indictment. This was power. This was proof. This was the ammunition I never wanted, but now knew I would have to use. Because my 13 years at Nexus had taught me something Ryan had never grasped. Documentation beats narrative every single time. He could tell himself whatever story he wanted, but the numbers didn't lie. I thought about the promotion they'd given me 3 days ago. Director of Product Strategy, a corner office on the 20th floor with a panoramic view of the city, a company car, a sleek, practical hybrid, and a 20% raise that would push my salary to $180,000 a year. I had come home bursting with excitement, eager to tell Ryan, already planning how we'd celebrate. Maybe we could finally book that trip to Greece I'd been dreaming of. Maybe we could renovate the guest bathroom, which still had hideous fixtures from the 90s. Maybe we could just go out for a fancy dinner where I didn't have to plan the menu or wash the dishes. Instead, he'd looked up at me from across that same quartz countertop and said, "So, I guess you'll be working even later now." Not, "Congratulations." Not, "I'm so proud of you." Not even a simple, "Tell me about it." Just an accusation, as if my success was a personal attack on him. I tried to explain the opportunity, the team I would be leading, the innovative projects we were launching, but he just walked away mid-sentence to check his phone, dismissing everything I had worked for with the casual cruelty of someone who had forgotten, or maybe never even knew, that I was my own person, with my own ambitions that had nothing to do with him. That night, I made his favorite dinner anyway: pan-seared scallops with saffron risotto. I set the table with linen napkins, lit candles, tried to create an atmosphere of celebration even if he wouldn't participate. He ate while scrolling through Instagram, liking posts from other fitness gurus. Killing it, man. Respect the grind, bro. I had watched him, and I felt something inside me crack. Not a full break, not yet. Just a hairline fracture in the foundation of our marriage. The one where I had somehow convinced myself that supporting his dreams meant I had to sacrifice my own need to be seen. My colleague, Sarah, had asked me last week as we were wrapping up a late-night presentation, "Do you have a husband or a teenage son?" The question had stung more than she could have known. "What do you mean?" I'd asked, forcing a light laugh. "Because you're always packing his gym clothes," she said, "and prepping his meals and managing his schedule. My sister does that for her 17-year-old, and she's counting the days until he leaves for college." I'd brushed it off with a joke about Ryan being high maintenance, framing it as a charming quirk rather than a soul-crushing burden. But driving home that night, her words echoed in my head. When did I become his mother? When did managing his life become my second full-time job? The answer was right there in the spreadsheet. In 7 years of a slow, steady erosion of my expectations until I'd forgotten I was allowed to have any at all. I closed my laptop and looked around the kitchen again. The supplies for the dinner party I'd been planning for tomorrow were still sitting on the counter. We were supposed to host 8 people. Colleagues from my work, friends I'd been promising for months we'd have over. Another event I would plan, another meal I would shop for, cook, and clean up after. Another performance of A Perfect Marriage where I did all the work and Ryan showed up, looking handsome in his expensive clothes, charming everyone with stories about his ventures. I picked up my phone and sent a group text. "Hey everyone, so sorry to do this, but we have to postpone dinner tomorrow. Something's come up. Rain check, soon." The replies were immediate and understanding. Then I texted Ryan, wherever he was with his gym friends, at whatever bar I was currently paying for. "Canceled the party tomorrow. We need to talk logistics for the separate accounts. I'm free this weekend to get it all sorted." His response was almost instantaneous. "Great, the sooner the better." I smiled, a cold, sharp smile. He had no idea what he had just unleashed. No clue that separate finances meant the end of his invisible support system. No more prepped meals, no more clean laundry, no more managed calendar, no more funding for his fantasy lifestyle. He had no idea that 50-50 meant actual 50-50, that he would now be responsible for half a mortgage he couldn't afford, utilities he'd never once paid, and groceries he'd never budgeted for. He had no idea that the comfortable life he thought he'd earned was about to evaporate. I was done. Done being invisible, done being taken for granted, and done bankrolling someone else's fantasy while my own reality was dismissed with contempt. Ryan wanted separate accounts. He was about to get exactly what he asked for, and in the process, he would finally learn what I had been contributing all along. The spreadsheet glowed on my laptop screen, a confession written in cold, hard numbers. I sat there in the dark kitchen, the only light coming from the display, and I watched 7 years of my marriage get reduced to a set of calculations that could not be denied or explained away. Year 1, year 2, year 3. The pattern was relentless. My income climbed, my contributions grew. Ryan stayed stubbornly flat, a horizontal line hovering around $750 a month, sometimes dipping even lower when his business costs ate into his meager earnings. I added a new tab to the spreadsheet, titling it Business ROI. This was for Ryan's fitness coaching venture, the dream he'd been chasing for 2 years while I underwrote our entire life. Total investment, $51,300. Website design, professional photography, multiple certifications, marketing materials, brand-consistent athletic wear, the supplements he insisted he needed to look the part, travel to fitness expos, booth rental fees, and 3 separate orders of business cards because the first 2 designs weren't quite right. Total revenue, $4,100. I stared at that number, $4,100. Over 2 years. That was less than $175 a month, not even enough to cover his own gym membership, which he justified as a business expense because apparently clients want a coach who trains at an exclusive facility. The math was sickening. For every single dollar Ryan's business had earned, I had invested $12 to keep it afloat. This wasn't entrepreneurship. It was a ridiculously expensive hobby that I had been unknowingly funding. I created one more tab, Daily Operations. This one was more painful because it quantified the invisible labor, the endless tasks I performed so automatically that I'd stopped seeing them as work. Meal planning and grocery shopping, 5 hours a week, cooking 8 hours a week, cleaning 6 hours a week, laundry 3 hours a week, household management, paying bills, scheduling appointments, coordinating maintenance, 4 hours a week. A minimum of 26 hours of unpaid labor every week. At a conservative rate of $40 an hour, that was over $1,000 a week, nearly $54,000 a year in domestic services I provided for free. When added to the financial imbalance, it meant I was contributing well over $130,000 annually to our household, while Ryan, between his minimal income and his non-existent time investment, was contributing maybe $15,000. My phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. Out with the guys. Don't wait up. I glanced at the message and did a quick mental calculation. His friends favored the trendy downtown breweries where a single pint costs $10 to $15. He'd have at least 4, plus some appetizers. $60, maybe $80, all charged to the credit card I'd be paying off for one more week. And then Ryan's bar tabs would become Ryan's problem. I saved the spreadsheet one last time and shut the laptop. The kitchen was plunged into darkness. Outside, I heard the faint sounds of suburbia winding down, a neighbor's dog barking, a car door slamming. Inside, there was only silence. I sat in that silence and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not happiness, not yet, but clarity. A cold, crystalline clarity about what my marriage truly was versus the illusion I'd been maintaining. Monday morning dawned gray and misty, the kind of Illinois morning that makes the world look washed out. I woke at 5:30 a.m. to my alarm, same as always, but this time, I only made 1 cup of coffee. I took out my favorite mug, a hand-thrown ceramic one I'd bought at an art fair years ago. Ryan had started using it, claiming it kept his coffee hotter, which was Ryan speak for, I like this, so it's mine now. I had stopped fighting over small things like mugs years ago. It was easier to just let him have his way. Except the big things never got resolved either, did they? I'd just gotten smaller and quieter until I had almost vanished. Not anymore. I made my coffee with intention, using the French press Ryan always complained was too much effort. I let the grounds bloom, steeped them for exactly 4 minutes, and pressed the plunger slowly. The ritual was grounding. I made myself a proper breakfast, scrambled eggs with chives from my garden, whole wheat toast with the good Irish butter I usually saved for guests, and a handful of fresh raspberries. At 7 a.m., Ryan wandered out of the bedroom, looking exactly as he always did, bleary-eyed, hair a mess, moving with the lazy entitlement of a man who expected his morning to be managed for him. He stopped dead in the kitchen doorway. The coffee pot was cold and empty. There was no breakfast waiting on the stove. There was just me sitting at the table, eating my meal for one. "Where's breakfast?" he asked, not really looking at me, just genuinely confused, as if he'd stumbled into the wrong house. I didn't look up from my tablet. The cabinets are right there. Cereal is on the top shelf. There's bread for toast and eggs in the fridge, if you know how to use them. Silence. I could feel him processing, his brain struggling to reconcile this new reality with the 7-year routine. "You're not making anything?" I finally looked up and met his gaze. "Separate finances means separate meals, Ryan. You wanted independence. This is what it looks like." His jaw clenched. I watched him search for a counter-argument that wouldn't make him sound like a complete hypocrite. He came up empty. He grabbed a protein bar from the pantry, one of the bulk boxes I had bought last week but would not be buying again, and left without another word. The front door shut. His car engine roared to life. The garage door rumbled, and then silence. I sat in that silence, and it felt different this time. Not just clarity, but something lighter, something that tasted like freedom. For 7 years, I had choreographed his mornings. Coffee ready, gym bag packed, workout clothes laid out, breakfast served. His entire morning orchestrated by me so he could just roll out of bed and into his day. Now, he would have to think for himself. It was the smallest change, but it felt monumental. That afternoon, during my lunch break, I created a new spreadsheet. This one was forward-facing. Household expenses, 50-50 split. I listed everything with cold precision. Mortgage, $3,600 a month. His half, $1,800. Property taxes, $480 a month. His half, $240. Home insurance, $150 a month. His half, $75. Utilities, average, $380 a month. His half, $190. Internet streaming, $160 a month. His half, $80. Landscaping, $200 a month. His half, $100. Total, $2,485 a month. That didn't even include groceries, gas, car insurance, or any of his personal expenses. Just the cost of keeping the roof over our heads. The roof I had been paying for almost entirely on my own, while he contributed his pathetic $750 and called it a partnership. I set up a shared document with automated payment reminders. I created a system where every bill would trigger a Venmo request to Ryan for his exact half. It was professional, organized, and impossible to argue with. The first bill arrived on Wednesday. Water and sewer, $360 for the quarter. I looked at the number. Our subdivision had notoriously high water rates, but this was inflated by Ryan's hour-long showers and the sprinkler system he'd insisted on installing because, in his words, curb appeal is an investment. I'd argued it was a waste. He'd called me cheap. We installed it. I paid for it. He got the greenest lawn on the block and posted pictures of it with hashtags about asset growth. I sent him a Venmo request for $180 with a cheerful note. "You're half of the water bill. Thanks." His text came back instantly. "This is insane. It's just the water bill." I replied immediately. "And you owe half. That's what separate finances means. Due by Friday, please." 3 dots appeared, vanished, then appeared again. Finally, fine. The payment arrived on Thursday. I could feel the resentment radiating through the transaction, through the stark lack of any note or emoji. Just money. Transferred with silent fury. Good. Let him be furious. Let him feel a fraction of what I'd been feeling every time I paid a bill he'd run up while calling me irresponsible. 2 weeks into our new arrangement, my office phone rang. The name on the caller ID, Eleanor, made my stomach clench. 7 years of being judged by the woman who raised the man who took me for granted. Chloe, darling. Her voice was that of a seasoned trial lawyer, friendly on the surface but with an undercurrent of command. "I'm coming for Sunday lunch. Ryan mentioned you're making your famous beef Wellington." Famous. I had made it exactly 3 times, all for her visits, and all because Ryan had volunteered my labor without asking. I almost laughed. "I'm sorry, Eleanor, but I won't be cooking on Sunday." A sharp silence. I had just broken some unwritten rule. "Excuse me?" Her tone shifted from commanding to confused and slightly offended. "Ryan and I have separate finances now," I explained, my voice as pleasant and professional as when I'm dealing with a difficult client. "Elaborate meals are no longer in my personal budget. You're welcome to come, of course, but you'll have to arrange your own food." More silence. I could practically hear her processing the information, trying to square it with the compliant daughter-in-law she thought she knew. "But Sunday lunch is a tradition, Chloe. We've done this for 7 years. 7 years of me cooking for her while she praised Ryan for choosing such a capable wife. 7 years of her son eating food I prepared, while telling me I needed to be more financially disciplined. "Then Ryan can cook," I said. "Or you can bring something. Either works for me." I hung up before she could formulate a rebuttal. Polite, professional, final. Then I opened my personal calendar and marked Sunday with 2 words: the reveal. 4 days. 4 days until Eleanor arrived expecting beef Wellington and found something very, very different. 4 days until the truth became undeniable. The next 4 days felt like an eternity. I moved through the week with the strange, hyper-aware calm that comes before a storm. Every interaction with Ryan was now loaded with unspoken tension. Every meal I made for myself felt like a quiet act of rebellion. Every bill that arrived was another piece of evidence building my case. On Wednesday evening, I came home to a kitchen in chaos. Not the usual mess from Ryan's protein shake experiments, but something far more destructive. Pots were on the stove. A cutting board was covered with vegetables that looked like they'd been mauled rather than chopped, and the air was thick with the smell of burning. Ryan was standing at the counter, his phone propped up against the spice rack, watching a YouTube video titled "Beef Wellington for Dummies." I put down my briefcase and just watched him for a second. He was so engrossed in the video, he hadn't even noticed me. "What are you doing?" I asked. He jumped, nearly knocking over a bottle of wine he'd opened. My expensive Cabernet, I noted, not the cheap cooking wine. "Practicing," he said defensively. "For Sunday." I surveyed the wreckage. The puff pastry was a soggy mess. The mushroom duxelles looked like mud. Something in a pan was smoking. "Need some help?" I asked, just to see what he'd say. His jaw tightened. "I've got it." I shrugged and walked away, listening to him curse under his breath as he struggled with a recipe the video made look so simple. 20 minutes later, the smoke alarm shrieked. I walked back in to find him frantically waving a dish towel at the ceiling while black smoke billowed from a pan. He'd seared the filet mignon on too high a heat, creating an acrid, burnt crust while the inside was still raw. "You need to use a meat thermometer," I said calmly over the alarm. He didn't answer, just kept waving the towel. I left him there and went upstairs. Behind me, I heard him throw the ruined meat into the sink with a frustrated roar. An hour later, the kitchen was a disaster zone. Every pot and pan we owned was dirty. Flour coated the floor, and the trash can was overflowing with his failed attempts. Ryan stood in the middle of it all, looking utterly defeated. "How do you do this?" he asked quietly, not really to me, but to the room. "How do you make it all look so easy?" I could have said practice, experience, caring about the outcome. Instead, I said nothing. I just looked at the chaos he had created, trying to do something I had done for him effortlessly for years. He pulled out his phone. A few minutes later, I heard him on a call. Yes, delivery for Sunday. 1 p.m. sharp. The pre-fix menu for 3. Yes, the beef Wellington. No, this is the correct address. I did a quick calculation. The Gilded Spoons pre-fix Sunday menu was about $75 per person. For 3, plus delivery, tip, and tax, he was looking at close to $250. Money he didn't have. Money he'd have to pull from his rapidly dwindling savings, or put on the credit card he was supposedly trying to rebuild. When he hung up, he saw me standing in the doorway. "Mom loves the Gilded Spoon," he said, a weak attempt at justification. "I know," I replied. "I've been ordering from there for her birthday for the last 5 years." His face did something complicated then, a flicker of recognition maybe, of yet another invisible task I had handled, another detail of his own mother's life that I had managed so he could take the credit. On Saturday night, I sat on the couch with a novel I'd been trying to read for months. I actually had time to read now that I wasn't spending my evenings choreographing Ryan's life. He was back in the kitchen, clanging around, setting the table. Around 9 p.m., he appeared in the living room doorway. "The delivery is at 1 tomorrow. Mom is coming at 1, so it should be perfect." I didn't look up from my book. "Okay, I'm going to use the good china," he added. "Make it look nice." Okay. He just stood there, clearly wanting something from me. Praise, maybe, or just acknowledgement that he was trying. I gave him nothing. I just kept reading. He retreated to the dining room. I heard him opening the china cabinet, the delicate clink of plates and glasses. 20 minutes later, he was back. Do we have cloth napkins? Linen closet, top shelf. More sounds of him playing house, performing domesticity for his mother. I turned the page of my book and smiled to myself. Sunday morning arrived, bright and cold. I woke up at 7, late for me, and made my single cup of coffee. I put on my gardening clothes and went outside to tend to my roses. Around 10 a.m., Nina Vance appeared at the fence separating our properties, a coffee mug in her hand. "Morning, Chloe," she said. "Big lunch plans today." I glanced toward our house. Through the dining room window, I could see Ryan frantically adjusting silverware. "Ryan's mother is visiting," I said, turning back to my roses. Nina leaned against the fence. "Is everything okay with you two? My husband, Mark, mentioned..." She trailed off, being delicate. Mark, her husband, an architect whose home office shared a wall with our kitchen. "What did Mark mention?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. He heard some intense conversations last week, not shouting, but a lot of tension. "We just wanted to make sure you were all right." I could have lied, smiled, and said we were just going through a rough patch. Instead, I met Nina's eyes. She was a forensic accountant, sharp and observant. "We're going through some changes," I said, "a financial restructuring." Her eyebrows shot up. "That sounds official." I pulled off my gardening gloves. "It's actually very simple. We're just finally being honest about who pays for what." Nina processed this, her mind clearly connecting dots I hadn't laid out. "Financial restructuring," she repeated slowly, as in separating your finances, as in acknowledging reality, I said. Nina's expression shifted to one of understanding and something that looked a lot like solidarity. "Well," she said carefully, "if you need anything, someone to talk to, a good bottle of wine, whatever, I'm right next door." She gave my arm a gentle squeeze before heading back to her house. I had just planted a seed. I now had a witness, someone who would be paying attention when the whole facade came crashing down. At 12:45, I came inside. The dining room table did look elegant. Ryan had managed that much. The wedding china was set perfectly, the linen napkins folded into fans. The Gilded Spoons delivery bags sat on the kitchen counter, waiting. Ryan emerged from the bedroom wearing a dress shirt and slacks, playing the part of the successful son. "She'll be here in 15 minutes, he said. I looked down at my dirt-stained jeans and old t-shirt. "I know," I said, and went upstairs to change. When I came back down, dressed in a simple but clean sweater and jeans, Eleanor's silver Lexus was pulling into the driveway, 1 p.m. on the dot. Eleanor didn't do fashionably late. Ryan opened the door. "Mom, right on time." She swept in, a vision in cream-colored cashmere, air kissing Ryan's cheek before her sharp eyes landed on me. "Chloe." Her tone could have frozen boiling water. 7 years of that tone. "Eleanor, lovely to see you," I replied with matching coolness. She moved toward the dining room, her heels clicking on the hardwood floors. She stopped at the threshold. The table was beautiful, china gleaming, crystal sparkling. Except in the center of the table, instead of serving platters of home-cooked food, sat 3 large white takeout bags from the Gilded Spoon. Eleanor's face went through a rapid series of expressions. Confusion, then disbelief, then something verging on horror. "What is this?" Her voice rose. "Where is the home-cooked meal?" Ryan rushed forward, trying to manage the situation. "Change of plans, Mom," I ordered from the Gilded Spoon. "You love their food." "You ordered?" She turned to him as if he'd just confessed to a felony. Why didn't Chloe cook? Her eyes snapped to me, demanding an answer. This was it, the moment I had been planning for. I stepped into the dining room, a wine glass in hand, perfectly calm, because cooking elaborate, unpaid meals is no longer part of our new financial arrangement, Eleanor. The words dropped into the silent room like stones in a still pond. Financial arrangement, she repeated, testing the words. Ryan wanted separate finances, I explained pleasantly, as if discussing the weather. So now we split everything 50-50. That includes labor. He volunteered to handle Sunday lunch, and he did, by ordering $250 worth of catering. I watched the number land. I watched Eleanor's lawyer brain kick into gear, calculating, questioning. Ryan, she said, turning back to her son, you spent $250 on takeout. He shifted his weight. It's fine, Mom. I can afford it. The lie was so pathetic it was almost sad. I decided to push. Can you? I asked. Because the mortgage is due on Tuesday. Your half is $1,800, plus $265 for utilities and another $300 for groceries we agreed to split. That's $2,365 by Tuesday, Ryan. The color drained from his face. Eleanor turned to him with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, but a cold, sharp calculation. Ryan Michael, she said, using his full name. What is she talking about? Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked like a fish, gasping for air. Mom, it's complicated. Chloe is exaggerating. I'm not exaggerating anything, I interrupted calmly. Your half of the basic household expenses is $2,485 a month. That's half the mortgage, half the taxes, half the insurance, half the utilities, half the landscaping. The bills are all documented in our shared expense tracker. Eleanor's entire demeanor changed. I was watching 30 years of courtroom experience activate in real time. Her shoulders straightened. Her expression became neutral, professional. Chloe, she said, turning to me, what exactly is your half of the household expenses? I had been waiting for this. I set down my wine glass and met her gaze. The same as Ryan's, I said. We split everything equally now. It was his idea. Her eyes narrowed. And how much were you paying monthly before this new arrangement? This was it, the kill shot. Before this, I was paying approximately $7,100 a month. Ryan was contributing around $750. The silence that followed was absolute. Margaret stood frozen, her face a cascade of micro-expressions. Disbelief, calculation, recognition, and something that looked like grief. That can't be right, she whispered, but there was no conviction in her voice. She knew numbers, and she knew I was not the type to lie about them. It's all right here, I said quietly. I have the documentation, if you'd like to see it. Yes, Eleanor said immediately. I would. Ryan made a panicked sound. Mom, this is a private matter. You don't need to. Ryan, Eleanor's voice cut through his stammering like a razor. Be quiet. I walked to my home office, retrieved the binder from my desk drawer, and returned to the dining room. 62 pages of documentation, neatly organized with colored tabs. I handed it to her. 7 years of bank statements, credit card bills, mortgage payments, receipts, every dollar accounted for. Eleanor took the binder like it was evidence in a capital case. She flipped straight to the summary page, the one with the pie charts showing the percentage breakdown year by year. The pattern was undeniable. My contributions consistently made up 87 to 92% of our total expenses. At the bottom of the page, highlighted in yellow, was the final tally. Chloe, $410,000. Ryan, $52,000. Eleanor's hands began to tremble. She started flipping through the pages. Ryan's gym membership, $250 a month for 5 years. His supplement orders, $400 a month, every single month. The business expenses tab was the thickest. The camera gear, the website, the marketing materials, the travel to fitness expos. Every single purchase made with my money, while he was telling me I was bleeding him dry. My God, Eleanor whispered. Ryan stepped forward. Mom, you have to understand, I was building a brand. How much did the brand earn? Eleanor asked, her eyes still glued to the binder. Silence. Ryan. How much did your business earn in the last 2 years? About $4,100, I supplied. Total. Eleanor's head snapped up. She looked at her son with an expression of pure, profound disappointment. You invested. She flipped back to the business tab, doing a quick mental calculation, over $51,000 of Chloe's money to earn $4,100. It takes time to build a brand, he said, his voice rising in desperation. Did you know, Eleanor interrupted, her courtroom voice now fully engaged, that Chloe was paying 88% of your household bills while also funding this venture that earned less than $200 a month? Ryan's face was bright red. She makes more money than me. Of course she paid more. Then why, Eleanor asked, her words precise and cutting. Did you tell her she was bankrolling your absurd lifestyle? The question hit him like a physical blow. He actually staggered back a step. Why did you demand separate accounts? She pressed on. If you were the one benefiting so massively from the joint arrangement, why did you accuse her of financial irresponsibility when you were the one spending hundreds of dollars a month on protein powder while contributing almost nothing? Ryan's mouth opened and closed. He looked like he was drowning. Mom, it's not... She's making it sound... Am I? I asked quietly. Which number is wrong, Ryan? Which receipt is fake? He had no answer. Eleanor closed the binder with a sharp, final snap. Then she looked at me with something I never expected to see from her. Respect. Chloe, she said softly, may I use your kitchen? The request was so bizarre I could only nod. Of course. I followed her, and Ryan trailed behind us looking like a condemned man. Eleanor walked into the kitchen and began a systematic inspection. She scanned the clean counters, the organized pantry, the spotless appliances. Then her eyes fixed on the refrigerator door, where I had pinned up the new shared expense tracker. She walked closer, reading the neat columns. Bill, due date, amount owed, payment status. Next to Ryan's name, highlighted in yellow, were the words, unpaid, unpaid, unpaid. Eleanor's hand flew to her mouth. Then she did something I never could have predicted. She opened the refrigerator. The inside was bisected by a clean line of blue painter's tape. My side was filled with fresh vegetables, containers of prepped meals, lean proteins, Greek yogurt, the organized fridge of a functional adult. Ryan's side contained a half-empty bottle of ketchup, 3 energy drinks, and a box with 1 slice of greasy congealed pizza. Nothing else. No fruit, no vegetables, no actual food. Eleanor stared at the division for a long moment. Then she closed the door and moved to the pantry. She opened the double doors. The same clear line. My shelves were stocked with quinoa, lentils, whole wheat pasta, canned goods, baking supplies. His shelves held 6 giant tubs of protein powder and nothing else. The visual evidence of 7 years of imbalance was irrefutable. She then moved to the cabinet under the sink and pulled out the trash can. It was overflowing. I had deliberately not emptied it since Ryan's cooking disaster. The contents told the story: the burnt fillet, the ruined vegetables, the soggy pastry, the empty wine bottle, the evidence of a man who had never had to cook because someone had always done it for him. Eleanor's face went from pale to red to a deep blotchy purple. She straightened up slowly, turned to face Ryan, and then she screamed. Not a gasp, not a cry. A full-throated horror movie scream that echoed through the house and out the open kitchen window into the quiet Sunday afternoon. It was the primal anguish sound of a mother realizing her son had become the exact type of man she'd spent her entire legal career prosecuting. Through the window, I saw heads pop up in neighboring yards. I saw Nina Vance look up from her garden. I saw Mr. Henderson pause on his front walk. Eleanor stood in my kitchen, trembling, the binder in one hand, the expense sheet in the other. 7 years, she whispered, her voice breaking. 7 years. Ryan took a step toward her. "Mom, don't you dare," she said, holding up a hand. 7 years you let her support you. 7 years you used her money to play at being a businessman while she worked 60-hour weeks. 7 years you called her irresponsible while she was the only thing keeping you afloat. Ryan's face was ashen. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that, Eleanor shot back. The numbers don't lie, Ryan. The receipts don't lie. This, she gestured wildly at the kitchen, does not lie. Outside, the neighbors were gathering. The Vances, the Patels, even old Mr. Henderson. Eleanor's scream had brought them out, and now they stood on our lawn and the sidewalk, peering through the windows, their phones already out, recording, probably streaming it live to the neighborhood Facebook group. Eleanor looked at me, her eyes filled with tears. "Chloe," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "I am so profoundly, deeply sorry." Her apology hung in the air, but I could see she wasn't done. "I had no idea," she said again, her voice trembling. "If I had only known—" "You couldn't have known," I said gently. He hit it well, but she shook her head fiercely, her gaze dropping to the spreadsheet still clutched in her hand. "Did he hide it?" she asked, her voice rising again. "Or did we all just refuse to look?" The question landed with the force of a physical blow. Because she was right. Ryan hadn't really hidden it. I had been openly supporting him, paying bills from my accounts, managing every single aspect of our lives in plain sight. Eleanor had seen the elaborate meals, the pristine home, the gifts I bought for her that Ryan presented as from us. She had seen it all and never questioned it because the truth was inconvenient, because it disrupted the narrative. "I saw you," she continued, her voice breaking completely. "I saw you cooking and cleaning and managing everything, and I told myself you were just capable, that you enjoyed it, that it was fine because you were good at it." She pressed a hand to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "But you weren't just capable, were you? You were exhausted. You were invisible. And I made you more invisible. I praised your competence instead of questioning his absolute uselessness." Outside, the audience had grown. Nina Vance had moved closer to our kitchen window, her face a mask of grim understanding. How many of them had seen the same thing and said nothing? Eleanor straightened her spine, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. When she looked at me again, her expression had hardened with resolve. The question stunned me. I had expected a defense of her son, not an offer of alliance. I glanced out the window at our neighbors bearing witness to this suburban meltdown. "I need you to see the truth and acknowledge it," I said simply. "That's all. Just bear witness." Eleanor nodded once, a sharp, certain movement. Then she turned to Ryan with a look that made him flinch. "I'll be staying at a hotel tonight," she said, her voice like ice. "When I come back, if I come back, I expect you to be prepared to have a very different conversation about your contributions to this marriage." She tucked the binder under her arm like a legal file and walked to the front door. Ryan finally found his voice. "Mom, wait!" No, she didn't even turn around. "You have humiliated yourself, Ryan, in front of your neighbors, in front of your wife, and in front of me. You need to sit with that. You need to understand what you've done." She opened the door and walked out into the yard, where at least a dozen neighbors were now standing. They parted for her like the Red Sea. I watched Nina gently touch Eleanor's arm as she passed, a small gesture of female solidarity. Eleanor got into her Lexus and drove away. The neighbors stood frozen for a moment, then slowly began to disperse, but not before I saw their faces. Nina gave me a look of deep respect. Susan Patel looked thoughtful. They had heard the scream, and they had seen the truth. Ryan and I stood in the kitchen. The $250 worth of catering sat untouched on the dining room table. "You planned this," he said, his voice a hollow whisper. "You wanted this to happen." I looked at him. This man I had married, this man I had supported, this man who had tried to make me the villain in his story. "I documented the truth," I said calmly. "That's all. The rest of this was all you." My mother screamed. he said, as if I hadn't been there. She screamed, and now the whole neighborhood knows. Yes, I finished for him. They know now. They know what you've been doing for 7 years. They know who is actually bankrolling your lifestyle. His face flushed. This is crazy. You're making me look like... Like what? I challenged him. Like a man who contributed $52,000 over 7 years while his wife contributed $410,000? Like a man who demanded separate finances while mooching off her? Like a man who called his wife irresponsible while she paid for his entire existence? He had no answer. The numbers don't lie, Ryan, I continued. Your mother knows that. She's a lawyer. She has spent 30 years dealing with financial abuse disguised as marriage, and she just realized her own son is the abuser. Don't call it that, he snapped. It wasn't abuse. I didn't mean to. Didn't you? I asked. Every accusation you threw at me was a confession, Ryan. Every time you called me a burden, you were describing yourself. His phone began buzzing relentlessly. He pulled it out, his face going pale as he read the screen. What is it? The neighborhood group chat, he said faintly. Someone posted the video of my mother in the kitchen. What are they saying? I asked, genuinely curious. He scrolled, his face turning a sickly gray. They're on your side. They're calling me... He couldn't finish. He just handed me the phone. I scrolled through dozens of messages. Holy crap, did you hear Eleanor Davis scream? I got it on video. 410,000 to 52,000? Are you kidding me? Ryan's been living off Chloe's money for years. He called her irresponsible? Wow. Eleanor said he became the kind of man she spent her career protecting women from. Damn. I always wondered why Chloe looked so tired. Now I know. Nina Vance had posted, "If anyone needs to talk about financial dynamics in a partnership, my door is open. What we saw today is more common than you think." Susan Patel had replied, "Seconded. And Chloe, if you're reading this, we see you now. We're sorry we didn't see you sooner." I handed the phone back to Ryan. "Everyone's gonna know," he whispered. "Yes," I said. "Everyone is going to know the truth. That's what happens when you demand 50-50 and can't afford your half. The truth becomes visible." He looked at me as if I were a stranger. "Who are you?" "Someone who is done being invisible," I said. "Someone who decided her contributions mattered. Someone who got tired of being called a burden by the person she was carrying." I walked past him and headed upstairs. "Where are you going?" he called after me. "To my room," I said, "to read, to enjoy the quiet, to exist in my own space without having to manage yours." "This isn't over," he said, but his voice had no conviction. "No," I agreed from the stairs. "It's not, but it's different now, and it will never, ever go back to what it was." I went into my bedroom and closed the door. Downstairs, I could hear him moving around, probably on the phone with his mother, who I knew wouldn't answer. I heard him in the kitchen, finally dealing with the uneaten food. Outside, the afternoon sun cast long shadows across our neighborhood, a neighborhood where neighbors were still talking, where the truth had finally, brutally, and necessarily come to light. I lay on my bed and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, Ryan would have to figure out how to pay $2,365 in bills he'd never budgeted for. Tomorrow, he would have to face a neighborhood that now knew exactly who he was. But today, in this moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in 7 years. Not triumph, not even happiness, just the quiet, profound relief of truth finally spoken aloud. The quiet in our house that night was a new kind of silence. It wasn't comfortable or companionable, it was hollow, like a room stripped of its furniture, revealing all the scuffs and stains on the floorboards underneath. I lay in bed, listening to Ryan moving around downstairs. I heard him finally dealing with the takeout containers, the scrape of utensils, the refrigerator door opening and closing. Then, nothing. Around midnight, his footsteps creaked on the stairs. They They paused outside my bedroom door. I held my breath, waiting. Would he knock? Try to come in? Attempt some half-baked apology? The footsteps moved on, down the hall to the guest room. The door clicked shut. I exhaled, pulling the comforter around me, my bed, my room, my space. For the first time in 7 years, it felt entirely my own. Monday morning was gray and cold. I woke at 5:30, made my single cup of coffee, and got ready for work in the master bathroom without having to tiptoe. Ryan was already separate, already learning the hard way what it meant to manage his own existence. I left the house at 7:15. Nina Vance was at the end of our street, ostensibly checking her mail, but I knew she was waiting. "Chloe," she said as I approached. "Got a minute?" "Sure." She glanced back toward our house. "What your mother-in-law said yesterday about the money. Was that really true?" I could have been diplomatic, but I was done with diplomacy. Every word. Her expression shifted. "For how long?" 7 years. She made a small, pained sound. "Mark and we had no idea. We just thought you had everything so together." "That was the problem," I said quietly. "I made it look effortless so no one ever questioned if it should be." "If you need anything," she said, squeezing my arm, "we're here. We see you now." That phrase, "we see you now," stuck with me all day. I threw myself into my new role as director, a world where my contributions were valued and my competence was an asset, not an expectation. Around 3 p.m., my assistant buzzed me. "Chloe, you have a personal call, and Eleanor Davis. She says it's urgent." I picked up, curious. "Chloe." Her voice was steadier than on Sunday, but still strained. "I wanted to tell you something before you heard it from anyone else." I waited. "I've made an appointment with a therapist," she said, "for Thursday, to discuss why I enabled Ryan's behavior by refusing to question it." I was genuinely stunned. "That's good, Eleanor. That takes a lot of courage." "It's terrifying," she admitted. "I'm 63 years old. I spent my career protecting women from men exactly like Ryan, and I missed it in my own family. I watched it happen, and I told myself it was fine because you were so capable." Her voice cracked. "I turned your competence into an excuse for his uselessness. I made you smaller by praising how well you handled everything." We sat in silence for a moment. "Can I ask you something?" she said finally. "And I need you to be honest. Okay, is the marriage over?" It was the question I'd been asking myself. "I don't know," I said truthfully. "I don't know if I want to go back, and I don't know if he's capable of real change." "That's fair," she said. "For what it's worth, I've told him the burden of proof is entirely on him now." On Wednesday, a Venmo notification popped up on my phone. Ryan had sent $1,800. The memo line read, "Mortgage, my half." I stared at it. The first time in 7 years he had paid his actual share of the mortgage. On Thursday, $265 for utilities. On Friday, $300 for groceries. Each payment arrived without comment, just money transferred, an obligation met. Out of curiosity, I checked his Instagram. He hadn't posted in days. His follower count had plummeted from 312 to 215. The comments on his last post, the one about empire building, had all been deleted. The brand was imploding. On Thursday evening, I came home to a spotless kitchen and a note on the counter in Ryan's neat handwriting. Canceled Apex Athletics membership. Joined Community Center, $35 a month. Selling my kettlebells a marketplace. First therapy session is Monday at 4 p.m. R. No apology, just facts. Accountability. It was the most adult communication I'd received from him in years. That night, I made myself a simple dinner. As I was eating, Ryan came home. He saw me at the table. "Smells good," he said quietly. "There's chicken in the fridge if you want to make some," I replied without looking up from my book. A long silence. Then, I don't know how. "YouTube has tutorials," I said. "Or there's a cooking class at the community center." More silence. Then the sound of the microwave as he heated up the expensive leftovers from the gilded spoon. He sat at the other end of the table. We ate in silence, me with my book, him with his phone. I paid the bills, he said finally. I saw. Thank you. It's a lot more than I thought. I turned a page. Yes. I don't know how you managed it all this time, he said, his voice small. The bills, the cooking, the cleaning, working 60 hours a week. I finally looked up. His face was drawn and tired. I managed it, I said, because I had to, because you weren't going to. He flinched but didn't argue. I'm sorry, he said. I know that's not enough. I know it doesn't fix 7 years of... He struggled for the words. Of taking you for granted, of being useless. I closed my book. No, it's not enough, but it's a start. What do I do? He asked, his voice cracking. How do I fix this? I looked at him, this man who was slowly, painfully beginning to understand. You become someone different, I said. You learn to cook. You learn to do your own laundry. You stop expecting me to be your mother and you start acting like my partner. You prove with consistent action that you can contribute equally instead of just taking. And if I do that, then we'll see, I said. But I am not waiting around while you figure it out, Ryan. I'm living my life. If you want to be part of it, you have to earn that every single day. He nodded slowly, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. Good, I thought. Let him feel small for once. Let him understand what 7 years of being invisible felt like. 6 months after the scream, I woke on a Sunday morning to the smell of coffee. Not burnt, but rich and complex. I came downstairs to find Ryan at the French press, moving with careful concentration. He had been practicing. He poured 2 mugs and handed one to me. It was good, genuinely good. I've been taking that cooking class, he said, 3 nights a week. Made chicken marsala last night. It was edible. That's good, I said. I sold the last of my old gym equipment, he continued. Got $200, put it toward my half of next month's mortgage. His half, which he had now paid on time for 6 straight months. The community center offered me more hours, 40 a week with benefits. It's only $19 an hour, but it's something. Are you taking it? Yeah, I have to. I can't keep pulling from my retirement to cover my bills. He said it without a trace of resentment, just a statement of fact. We finished our coffee. Can we talk? He asked. About us? We sat in the living room on opposite ends of the couch. I need to ask you something, he began, and you have to be completely honest. I waited. Do you want to stay married or do you want a divorce? The question I had been avoiding. I don't know, I said. He nodded. My therapist says I have narcissistic tendencies, he said quietly. That I built my identity around being special, the athlete, the entrepreneur, instead of actually doing anything of value. She says I used your competence as proof of my own specialness. Like if someone as amazing as you would support me, I must be worth it. He looked down. But I wasn't. I was just using you. Yes, I said. There was no point in softening it. I'm not asking you to stay, he said, finally looking at me. I'm asking what you need to be happy. And if that's a divorce, I will sign the papers, no questions asked. You deserve that choice. I looked at him, this man who was maybe, possibly becoming someone different. I need time, I said, a year, maybe more, to see if this is real. He nodded. Okay, I need to see you keep working, keep contributing, keep managing your own life. And I need us to do couples counseling. The real kind that deals with power and abuse. I'll call someone tomorrow, he said. And why? He asked, his voice cracking. After everything, why are you even giving me this chance? I thought about that. Because I want to see if people can really change, I said. And because the person I married 7 years ago, before all of this, that person was worth loving. I want to see if he's still in there somewhere. Tears filled his eyes. I'm trying to find him too, he whispered. This past Sunday, 6 months and 2 weeks after the scream, Eleanor came for lunch. This time, Ryan cooked a simple roast chicken. He moved around the kitchen with a competence that was new and surprising. We all set the table together. Eleanor raised her water glass. A toast, she said, to truth, to change, and to the hard work of becoming better. We clinked glasses. "I'm proud of you, Ryan," she told him. Then she turned to me. "And Chloe, I am grateful to you for refusing to disappear, for teaching my son and me what real partnership means." After lunch, Ryan started clearing the plates. "I've got this," he said when I stood to help. "You've done the dishes for 7 years. It's my turn." Eleanor and I sat in the living room while he cleaned the kitchen. We could hear him working, putting things away in their proper places, because he had finally learned where things go. Some stories end with a clean break and a fresh start. Ours is still being written, one honest conversation, one bill paid, one competently cooked meal at a time. But that scream, that beautiful, horrified, truth-telling scream, will always be the moment everything changed, the moment the invisible became undeniable, the moment my mother-in-law looked at her son and finally truly saw what I had been living with for 7 years. And sometimes, in the wreckage of a life you thought you knew, you find the foundation to build something real. If this story of truth and transformation resonated with you, hit that like button right now. My favorite moment was when Eleanor opened that refrigerator and saw the truth laid bare. What was your favorite part? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss another story of a woman finding her power. End of story.